We came into the hour thinking there would be a different major story, which is still out there, which is infrastructure. That infrastructure bill just passed by the Senate has support from Republicans as well as Democrats, but it was far from unanimous. And we welcome now one of those who was voting against. He's Republican Senator Mike Braun of Indiana. So, Senator, thank you so much for being patient and waiting for us. We didn't expect this announcement from Andrew Cuomo. Before we get to infrastructure, do you have any reactions to this announcement just made by Governor Cuomo?
So I listened to most of it here at the tail end, and I think he would have been like the Harry Houdini of politics to escape this one. It was inevitable in my mind, and then I think it became urgent because it had embedded in it maybe the hypocrisy of somebody at that stature being able to somehow get out of the pickle that he was in. And I think it also plays into many people across the country, across the political spectrum, find that kind of cavalier point of view, the hubris that goes along with the job, and then when you leverage it, it probably put him in even a more difficult spot. I think it's a sad story, emblematic across maybe being in the business of politics where things go to your head and you lose your bearings. So, sad story, and I'm surprised, though, it had ended today. I thought it would be more protracted.
So, Senator, I want to go back to that other major story that you participated in directly, which is the passing of that bipartisan infrastructure bill through the Senate. As I say, you voted against it. Is it because of what it wanted to accomplish or how much it cost?
No. For the time I've been here, basically a little over 2.5 years, I came here out of the real world of running a business, was on a school board 10 years, a state government that believed in rainy day funds and balanced budgets. We are the opposite of that. So when I knew what we were doing, and even on the things I like, David, I think the federal government should probably defend the country as our top priority, have infrastructure like we did coming out of World War II, maybe as number 2, and shoring up entitlements. If we could just do the 3 of them without borrowing money from our kids and grandkids, that would be different for me. So I'm for infrastructure, but with honest pay-fors where you have dedicated streams of income. And we've gotten rid of that way of thinking a long time ago. Not done a budget literally in 20 years that we've adhered to. And this is the biggest business in the world, kind of run by the seat of its pants. It's antithetical to anything I did coming from a common sense place like Indiana.
Well, and coming from Indiana, you also created and built a business. You've run a business, so you know how this works. If you're building a business, you might make capital investments and take into account the future earnings you get off of the investment. Do you think perhaps this particular $550 billion in new money might be paid for in some of the increased growth in the United States?
Well, you could use that because in the business world, whenever you borrow money or put your own equity into it, you want to calculate that return on investment carefully. And in this case, we've been throwing that aside, David, for decades. When we started shrugging off trillion-dollar deficits as we were coming through the Gulf Wars and then kind of lost all fiscal sanity through 08 and 09, and then what we've done recently, that doesn't mean you then double, triple, quadruple down on something that you don't have to be a finance guy or understand macroeconomics. This isn't going to end well, and the credit markets will start to reflect it soon. But yes, if we were doing this like we did in Indiana, where we did not have money borrowed unreasonably, other than on a few maybe infrastructure projects, it would make sense. But now we're going for broke. This next spending spree of $3.5 trillion, almost all of that will be borrowed. The Fed will be accommodating it because they'll be buying a lot of that debt. That will not end up well. I debated Bernie Sanders roughly a couple months ago on the modern monetary theory, which doesn't really have anybody backing it other than that's what they're doing. Deficits and accumulated debt don't matter. That's never worked in any other country throughout history.
Well, I think it's fair to say there's going to be a tussle, if I can use that term, over that budget proposal, $3.5 trillion. Some people are already saying it's not going to be 3.5, it's going to be 2 or 2.5 trillion. But let me ask a different question, which is the debt ceiling, which has been separated out. That's not part of the reconciliation package. At the same time, Mitch McConnell, your majority leader, has said he will not support that. isn't he going to have to sooner or later? We're not going to default.
So this has got a real political component to it, and I think it shows some of the hypocrisy. I call it the unholy alliance around here. And to kind of show you how this place works and why we may now be all of a sudden fiscal conservatives on raising the debt is we generally roll over to the other side on doing anything they want to do domestically. They do the same on defense. And then all of a sudden, that's what drives these trillion-dollar deficits, along with entitlements. That other thing we ought to do well that's been chronically draining their own trust funds. That doesn't make sense to me that you've been part of that, then all of a sudden you have an epiphany here. That's why I came, because I saw both sides of the aisle abusing the system. So many people look to the federal government to get something done, and it's really broken. So I think in this case, if we go along with raising a debt ceiling based upon this next component of spending, $3.5 trillion, and don't act like it's a bargain, if we take it down to 2 or 1.5, then we have got the odor of what occurred here on us. And I don't think any Republican should be for it. They need to own it, and they can do it through reconciliation. But it does beg the question of how we got here. That's been an equal opportunity endeavor of Republicans and Democrats.
Senator, thank you so much for being with us, and again for your patience as we were covering the resignation of Governor Cuomo. That's Senator Mike Braun. He is, of course, Republican of Indiana.